I never thought betrayal could come dressed in the voice of my own mother. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind that should have been filled with excitement. My bags were packed, my sundresses folded neatly, my sandals tucked in beside bottles of sunscreen. I'd been waiting for this day for months, the start of our long-awaited family cruise. For once, I thought we would finally feel whole again, laughing together under the same sun, away from all the cracks that had always existed but never been spoken about. Then the phone rang. "Please, honey." Mom's voice broke through the line, trembling as if she'd been crying. "Grandma really needs you. She's not feeling well at all." The air left my chest. The thought of Grandma, the woman who raised me on her stories and lavender hugs, lying in a hospital bed was unbearable. Without a second thought, I told her I'd stay. I told her the cruise didn't matter, not if Grandma needed me. Those words, spoken with love and sacrifice, would come back to haunt me in ways I still struggle to forgive. I am Tara Smith, 28 years old, and for most of my life I have been the responsible one. The daughter who shows up, who rearranges her life to help, who bends until she nearly breaks just so no one else has to. And yet that morning was the moment my entire world began to crack piece by piece, exposing truths so ugly I wish I'd never seen them. As I drove toward the hospital that evening, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my sister Emma. I glanced down, not expecting much, but what I saw made my heart slam to a stop. There they were, my family. My parents, my sister, my aunts and uncles. All standing on the deck of a cruise ship, champagne glasses raised high. The caption below read, "Best vacation ever. So blessed to have such an amazing family cruise." I pulled the car over, hands trembling so violently I could barely hold the wheel. My chest felt hollow. My family was supposed to be at the hospital. They were supposed to be with Grandma. Instead, they were toasting under the Caribbean sun, smiling so wide the betrayal looked like joy. They had lied to my face, lied about the one person I'd never questioned, my grandmother. I forced myself to the hospital anyway, praying maybe this was some misunderstanding, some cruel coincidence. But when I asked the front desk if my grandmother had been admitted, they gave me a puzzled look. There was no record of her, not that day, not ever. By then, Emma had already blocked me on social media. My calls to Mom and Dad went straight to voicemail. It was as if I'd been erased from the family with a single swipe. When I finally arrived at Grandma's house, she opened the door with her usual warmth, confusion written all over her face. She wasn't sick, she wasn't even tired. She was alive, healthy, and horrified when I told her what had happened. I collapsed into her arms, my body shaking with a grief that wasn't about illness but betrayal. In her living room, surrounded by the scent of lavender and the comfort of her old armchair, the truth spilled out of me. Every word, every detail, the lies, the cruise, the photographs that mocked me. Her expression shifted from sorrow to something harder, sharper. She told me things I didn't want to believe, but always knew deep down that I had never been treated equally. That Emma had always been favored. That my parents had been asking her to play along with their lies for weeks, trying to make me the fool yet again. As she spoke, something in me broke, but something else was born. Rage. Because what hurt wasn't just being left behind. It was knowing they didn't even have the courage to say, "We don't want you there." Instead, they used the one person I love most as a weapon to manipulate me. That night, Grandma pulled out an envelope, a thick manila folder filled with years of receipts, notes, and proof. Evidence that my parents had not only played favorites, but had been taking advantage of me, siphoning resources and opportunities that should have been mine. My entire life, I thought I'd been imagining it, that I was paranoid, that the way Emma got everything while I worked myself to exhaustion was just bad luck or poor timing. But the truth was in black and white before me: deliberate favoritism, calculated decisions, financial betrayals that had been happening for decades. I wanted to scream, to break something, to ask the question that never left my lips. Why wasn't I enough? And yet beneath the pain, Grandma's words echoed like a drumbeat. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? I didn't know it then, but those words would carry me through the darkest days that followed. Because this wasn't just about a cruise anymore. It wasn't about a week in the Caribbean. It was about every lie, every manipulation, every dollar stolen from me since I was a child. And if my family thought they could bury me in silence, they were about to learn just how loud the truth could be. I woke up the next morning with swollen eyes and a hollow ache in my chest, as if grief itself had taken up residence inside me. But when I looked over at the folder Grandma had given me lying open on the kitchen table, the grief sharpened into fury. Page after page of proof receipts for Emma's dance lessons, tuition payments, extravagant expenses that had been paid with money that should have been mine. My sacrifices, my long nights juggling 2 jobs just to keep myself afloat, all while Emma basked in a life built on what had been stolen. I stared at the papers until the ink blurred. And then, for the first time in my life, I didn't stay silent. I didn't swallow it. I grabbed my phone and wrote a post, my fingers trembling but steady with rage. Funny how being lied to about my grandmother being hospitalized just so my family could exclude me from a vacation somehow makes me the problem. Even funnier how the cruise was paid for with money that was meant to include me. I attached Emma's photo, the smiling faces, the champagne glasses, the caption bragging about family love. And then I hit post. The response was immediate. Notifications exploded across my phone like fireworks. Old friends, cousins, even people I hadn't spoken to in years flooded the comments with shock and anger. Private messages began pouring in, cousins admitting they'd seen the favoritism too, that they'd always felt something was wrong in the way my parents treated me. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I felt the ground shifting beneath me because I knew this was only the beginning. Not long after my phone lit up again, it was Dad. Against my better judgment, I answered, "Take that post down, immediately." His voice was cold-clipped, carrying that tone he always used when he thought control was slipping from his hands. "No," I said, surprising even myself with the steadiness in my voice. "You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick. You embarrassed us when you used her money to exclude me." Silence crackled over the line, and then his voice dropped lower, almost threatening. "You have no idea what you've started, Tara. If you don't take it down and apologize, you'll regret it. We've protected you all these years, kept certain things from you. Do you really want the truth to come out?" The words rattled me. Protected me. From what my stomach turned cold as the line went dead, his warning hanging in the air like smoke. Shaken, I called Grandma immediately. She listened in silence, then told me softly, "Go check your email, sweetheart. It's time you knew." With trembling hands, I opened my laptop. Sitting in my inbox was a message from her with several attachments. The first was a scan of a trust agreement dated 25 years ago. My grandfather, whom I barely remembered, had left behind a fortune, over $2 million, to be divided equally among his grandchildren when they turned 30. My breath caught in my throat as I read the line that made me feel like the floor had given out beneath me. My share had been drained. Bank statements told the rest of the story. The money meant for me had been siphoned away little by little for Emma's benefit. Her dance lessons, her private school, her college tuition, even her lavish wedding. Over $500,000 gone, money that had been mine by right, stolen before I was even old enough to understand what it meant. I pressed my hand to my mouth, trying not to sob. All those years I'd blamed myself for not working harder, for not being smarter, for struggling to stay afloat while Emma lived in comfort. It hadn't been me. It had been them. Another email came through, this one from my Uncle Michael, the trustee of the fund. His words were heavy with guilt. "Tara, I can't keep quiet anymore. What they did with the cruise money was the last straw. I should have stopped them years ago. I'm so sorry. I've attached all the documentation of every withdrawal they made from your trust." I opened the files and found more than I could stomach. It wasn't just Emma. My parents had used my money for themselves too. Luxury purchases, vacations, upgrades to their home. Decades of theft disguised as protection. I called Grandma, my voice hollow. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her sigh carried the weight of years. "I only discovered the full extent recently. I confronted your mother last month. She swore they'd pay it back. That's why I gave them the cruise money. It was a test, to see if they would finally do right by you. And Tara, they failed spectacularly." Anger burned through my grief. "Failed isn't even the word. They ruined me, Grandma. They took everything." "No," she said firmly. "They tried, but now we have proof, and proof is power." That night, as I sat staring at the evidence spread across my table, my phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Emma. I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone and you'll have nothing. I showed the message to Uncle Michael the next morning when we met at a downtown cafe. He looked pale, exhausted as he slid another folder across the table. Inside were documents showing recent transfers to offshore accounts. They're planning to run, he whispered. They've been moving money around using Emma's name to hide it. The cruise wasn't just a vacation, it was a test run for leaving the country. The words sank like stones in my stomach. My parents weren't just thieves. They were fugitives in waiting. And the question that haunted me was simple, terrifying, and undeniable. If they were willing to steal my childhood, my money, and my dignity, what wouldn't they take to save themselves? The next hours felt like a fever dream, each moment stitched together with fear, fury, and a strange rising sense of clarity. Uncle Michael's hands shook as he sipped his coffee, his eyes darting toward the window as though my parents might appear at any second. He leaned in and whispered, "They've already called me half a dozen times since I sent you those files. They know I've turned against them." "What are they saying?" I asked, my voice low, though my pulse was pounding in my ears. "They're claiming everything was done for your benefit, that you were too young, too irresponsible to handle that much money." He looked disgusted. "But Tara, I also found something they don't know I've uncovered, a string of transfers to offshore accounts. They've been preparing to vanish with what's left of your trust." The words tasted metallic in my mouth. I pictured my parents and Emma boarding a plane, smiling like they did on that cruise deck, their pockets heavy with what belonged to me. Running, leaving me behind for good this time. And then my phone buzzed again, a text from Emma. "I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone. You'll have nothing." I showed Uncle Michael. His face paled. "We need to act now." Before I could respond, my phone rang again. It was Grandma. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the storm beneath it. "They're at the company headquarters right now. Security called. Your father is clearing out his office." "Can they stop him?" I asked, already shoving papers back into the folder. "Better than that," she replied. "I've already contacted the police and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. But Tara, you need to get down there. You're the controlling shareholder now. The paperwork was filed this morning. They don't know that yet, and that's our advantage." For a moment, I couldn't move. I thought of the decades I'd spent begging for scraps of love, for crumbs of fairness. And now here I was, the one holding the power. My chair scraped against the cafe floor as I stood, my voice trembling but determined. "Then I guess it's time they find out." The drive to the company headquarters blurred into one long stretch of adrenaline. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from my mother. "Ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you, you'll regret this." But the threats didn't land anymore. I had proof. I had Grandma. And most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. When I pulled into the parking lot, they were there. My father carrying 2 boxes stacked high in his arms. My mother clutching her purse tight against her side. Emma trailing behind them, her face pale, her eyes flicking nervously from one corner of the lot to another. They froze when they saw me step out of my car. "What are you doing here?" my father barked, trying to summon that authoritative CEO tone, the voice that had once cowed board members and employees alike. But behind his words I saw it, the fear. I walked toward them slowly, deliberately, clutching my phone in my hand. "Funny," I said, my voice calm, even though my heart was racing. "I was about to ask you the same thing, especially since you're removing items from my company without authorization." Emma scoffed. "Your company? What are you talking about?" I held up my phone, the screen glowing with the signed ownership documents Grandma had emailed me. "Grandma transferred her controlling shares to me this morning. I'm the majority shareholder now, which means everything you're holding belongs to me. And I'm very curious what's inside those boxes. Evidence may be proof of how you've been stealing from me since I was 3 years old." My mother's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but no words came. And then sirens. Police cars and unmarked black vehicles pulled into the lot. FBI agents stepped out, their jackets marked boldly with yellow letters. My father's shoulders stiffened. My mother tried to step back, clutching Emma's arm. But it was too late. Grandma arrived, then pulled up beside Uncle Michael. She stepped out of the car with a fierceness I'd never seen in her before. She was small, but in that moment she seemed to tower over all of us. You don't understand. My mother pleaded, her voice cracking. Everything we did was for this family. No, I interrupted, my voice steady as stone. Everything you did was for Emma. And now you were planning to run away with what's left of my money. Tell me, Emma, was the cruise worth it? Was it worth losing everything? Tears spilled down her cheeks. My father tried to pull her away, but agents closed in, their voices firm and commanding. The moment stretched heavy and suffocating until it cracked open with the sound of handcuffs clicking shut. And just like that, the truth finally caught up with them. 3 months later, the air in Indianapolis carried the crisp bite of autumn. I sat in Grandma's garden, the world around me painted in shades of red and gold as leaves drifted lazily from the trees. She poured our coffee the way she always did, strong and a little too sweet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. The FBI's investigation had uncovered more than we ever expected. Not only had my parents drained my trust fund, they had been embezzling from the family company for years. Their financial crimes unraveled like a ball of thread, each discovery leading to another darker truth. They were indicted on federal charges, their names splashed across headlines that once celebrated their business success. Emma, she struck a deal. She testified against them in exchange for immunity. The girl who had been the golden child, the one who had everything handed to her, suddenly found herself stripped of the safety net my parents had built for her. She moved to Minnesota, working a modest job, sending me long messages filled with apologies. I read them, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. Some wounds don't heal with words, no matter how many are written. You know, Grandma said, watching me with that sharp, knowing gaze of hers, your grandfather would be proud of how you handled everything. He always said money reveals people's true character. I nodded, though my chest tightened with the weight of it all. I never wanted any of this. I didn't want their downfall. I just wanted to be treated fairly, to be loved the way Emma was. Grandma reached across the table, her hand finding mine. Her grip was warm, steady, unshakable. Sometimes life doesn't give us the fairness we deserve. Sometimes it gives us pain instead. But what matters is what we build from it. And you, Tara, you've built something stronger than fairness. You've built freedom. Her words settled into me, heavy and comforting all at once. Under my leadership, the company had started to change. I'd implemented transparency measures, set up scholarships for employees' children, and created programs my parents would have scoffed at as unnecessary. But the business thrived. For the first time, the success wasn't built on deception or favoritism, but on integrity. I often caught myself staring at the office windows in the evenings, thinking about the countless nights I'd worked 2 jobs, exhausted and unseen, while Emma danced in studios funded by my stolen money. The anger still lived in me, but it no longer consumed me. Instead, it pushed me forward, reminding me of why I had to be different. Sitting there in the garden, I realized something: the cruise my family had taken without me, the one I had grieved over as the loss of a lifetime, hadn't been a dream vacation at all. It had been their undoing, the turning point where lies began to unravel and secrets bled into the open. I lifted my coffee cup, letting the steam warm my face in the cool air. It's strange, I said softly. That betrayal was the best thing they could have given me. It set me free. Grandma smiled, her eyes shining with quiet pride. Life's greatest blessings often come disguised as heartbreak, my dear. You've turned their betrayal into your beginning. And she was right. For the first time, I no longer felt like the forgotten daughter. I was no longer the shadow of Emma's spotlight. I was someone who had faced betrayal, loss, and lies and had risen from them stronger than ever. So, to anyone watching, to anyone who has ever been made to feel like they weren't enough, hear me when I say this: your worth is not defined by those who fail to see it. Sometimes the very people meant to protect you are the ones who break you, but their betrayal does not define your story. You do. If my story moved you, if you've ever faced betrayal and found strength in the rubble it left behind, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Like this video, subscribe for more stories that dive deep into the truths we often hide, and share this with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone. Together we can turn pain into power and betrayal into beginnings.